There's that an interesting title, Organic Design for Command and Control. Okay?
Third.
It raises a couple of questions. Why the focus on command and control? And what do we mean by organic design? Now, one thing I will preempt myself right away. In my command and control presentation, there are no wiring diagrams. I happen to believe that human beings make command and control, not machines. So therefore, you see no wiring diagrams. None of my presentation. By intent, that was not by accident. By intent. And the reason why I developed this presentation is a reaction. The presentation I used to hear in the Pentagon, I gave about an hour and a half presentation. All they ever showed me all these fusion centers and all these interconnects and all that stuff. See? And after one colonel got done, I spent there about an hour and a half. I said, when are we going to talk about command and control? He was insulted. He said, well, I just talked about it. He didn't talk about command and control. Let's go over every goddamn one of your charts. I said, all you're showing is a bunch of goddamn hardware and how you fit it together. And so you're really, the title of your presentation should be, instead of CQ die, which they normally call it, should be CME. I said, what the hell is CME? I said, well, I concocted in the squad. It's communications and monitoring equipment. That was your presentation's about. You can talk about command and control. Just the equipment you use. What do you do? Stand back, equipment's going to do all the command and control. The guy said, no. I said, well, you don't have a command and control presentation. He was highly insulted, of course. And of course, that's what galvanized me into coming up with one. You know, to sort of lead the human being back into the things. After all, without human beings, you don't have any command and control. So first, that's why the focus. Now, what do we mean organic design? Of course, that's the whole idea behind this thing. Here's what we have the past few years, why the focus on command and control. Last year, look at all these gas, nifty nugget, CrowdSphere. Anybody heard of nifty nugget, CrowdSphere exercises? Yeah, they were worldwide command and control exercises. If anybody's familiar with it, we'll talk about them later on, but there's code worldwide, 78, 80, or 80, 82, I think. 2 years apart, they bombed out rather severely. And of course, I can name many others. And of course, typically what happens when you have this kind of a problem, here's a typical response to this. This is kind of it's another reason why we have to focus on command. In other words, it's a hardware mentality. I think all we got to do is just plow in more hardware, make it more sophisticated, more channels, spend more money, and we're home free. But the results show that that hasn't worked out too well. All we got is a big bill and a lot of confusion. So maybe there's another way of working. And emphasize what I call the implicit nature of human being. So now, in this chart, I'm showing why the focus is command and control. Now, what do we mean by organic design? That's going to be the rest of the presentation. We're going to get into what we mean by organic design. So this is why we're going to focus command and control as part of organic design as we go through the presentation. Okay, first of all, what I want to do is normally when people start talking about command and control, right away they start listing the requirements for command and control before they think about it. Well, if you don't think about it, then those requirements have no meaning. So when you talk about command and control, let's get into it a little, not so hard, let's get into it, sort of sneak our way into it. Let's look at the implications behind command and control. You begin to see the command and control system, in some sense you want to be able to have insight and vision. You want to be able to unveil your exercise plan as well as foresee your own goal program plan. Also, it should give you a basis for both focus and direction, so you can realize some goals, some aim, or some goals or aims or objectives, wherever you're headed. And next, obviously, it has to be adaptable. You're going to have to cope with both uncertainty and ever-changing circumstances. The goddamn world changes and moves along, so your system has to be adaptable or flexible so you can deal with it. And finally, of course, you better have some security to remain unpredictable. In other words, the guy can read into your system like we read into the German Enigma system during World War II. It caused a wee bit of a problem. Like, you know, you lose the benefits of all the stuff. It has some kind of security. So those are sort of the implications in a very general sense to keep track of. And then, of course, I want to make elaboration upon that by turning the argument around. And what I mean here is why insight and vision. Without it, you have no orientation to deal with either the present and the future. You're going to find out this is a very crucial idea. If you're not oriented, I don't care how much hardware you have, you're out to lunch. You're going to get taken with cleaners. I'm going to make that evident in the presentation what I mean by that. It's very important to verify. And then why focus and direction? Because without it, whether implied or explicit, you can either be a harmony of effort or initiative or even for vigor system. In other words, I'm coming in the back door of the argument. And why adaptability? Well, first of all, you have to understand to be adaptable implies variety and rapidity. If you don't have variety and rapidity, guess what? You become what? Non-adaptable and predictable. That's why you have to have variety and rapidity. And that makes adaptability. So without variety and rapidity, be unpredictable and controlled for change in unforeseen circumstances. And of course, why very well without it when it becomes predictable. In other words, guys can read into your system just by its very nature. Remember the whole idea of a command and control system. And you not only be able to have some command and control. Of course, I'm going to surprise you later on what I mean by command and control. But at this point, you not only want to have command and control, but also at the same time, you've got to be adaptable and unpredictable. Always got to keep that in mind. Always be adaptable and unpredictable. Because if you're not going to be good. You're going to get taken. And we really don't want that to happen. Okay, with that in mind, now I want to make this comment. So with these thoughts in mind, let's take a look at some samples. Let's just look back in military history, some things that we'll make use of as we proceed in our command and control, or our organic design, probably better way to say it. So here's some samples. And I just read some back, and you can probably think of some of your own. Sun Tzu, born in BC. And if you look at Sun Tzu, you can see a number of things in there. You want to go strength against weakness, and, you want to be quick, etc., and change cheap. You want to pull the other guy apart. And a direct quote from Corset. So Sun Tzu brings the idea of deception. So Corset brings the idea of ambiguity and all that. And look at Napoleon's comments. His focus, or the emphasis on time, being able to do things at a very rapid pace in order to unwind your adversary. And I'm actually quoting here in a different way here. And then look at Clausewitz. Now, Clausewitz says something very interesting. In the sense that he does, he just takes all these different things and wraps it under the notion of what he calls friction. The key idea being friction is the only concept that really distinguishes real war from war on paper. The point is, if you leave out the idea of friction, you're talking about something other than war. That's the way it is. And it's an interesting concept because, remember, he formulated it in the early part of the century. And since then, of course, we have the concept, the actual second law of thermodynamics, which has the concept of entropy. All natural processes generate entropy. So in a sense, the way he uses friction, not in a physics sense or a scientific sense, the way he uses it is very much in accord with the idea of the modern concept of what we call entropy. Of course, I've already described that to people. It's unavailable energy, inability to do work, capacity for, you can't take actions, that kind of thing, more confusion and disorder. So he's talking about that. And so in this sense, what he's saying, friction represents the climate or atmosphere of geometry. His comments aren't too surprising because remember he's a Napoleonic general. So if you look at his comments and compare him to Napoleon, you can see they're very much the same ballpark. He says it a little bit differently.
So if I just capture one thought, when you make that relationship between friction and entropy, where does this thing complacency come in? Is that you're already within yourself, or you're not reflecting on that?
Yeah, well, it means you're not. Complacency, what is it? Anybody. What does that mean for certain my presentation? It's very simple. When you become complacent, you're not really observing what's going on out there, which means now you're being cut off from your environment, so the very thing you need to know about, you don't know about, so now you're going to get taken. And that's what happened in armies. Like, we won World War II, but everybody's going to do it our way. But then we haven't won a war since World War II. Korea we tied, and Vietnam we lost.
So
we might want to get rid of those World War II methods because they don't seem to be working too good right now. In fact, they say the only people who learn from wars are the losing side because they recognize what they had didn't work. They better learn something new. The winning side becomes arrogant. He's got it all figured out. I mean, it's not. It hasn't only happened to the U.S. You can look back to history; it's happened again and again. And that's why you always got to guard against it. You got to assume I don't know the answer. I always got to go for the answer. And that's why I told you people it just finished. Here you are. I know you're very proud of it. It's a very good, very nice manual. We talked about it with people. FM-1. Some very new ideas. It's the best one out right now. But as far as I'm concerned, it's fucked up. Because if I don't say it's fucked up, then I'm going to keep it for 40 years like we kept the 1791 drill regulations. It's going to be out of date. You understand my philosophy? So right now, you guys should be sitting down, looking through that thing. Where can we improve that? So the next 2 years from now, when you go to write it, you got a new write-up and you build upon it. If not, you're going to have that thing you'll be out of date and you'll be back to World War II mentality. Except in a different time.
Can you share just a couple quick examples? Because I know that we're all getting ready to discuss this with the students. Some of those... when we re-observe the FMFM1, sure.
Okay, I'll give you a couple examples of it where they're incorrect. Now, when I say that, I'm not knocking the manual. It's damn good. It's the best one around. But you got to learn. You got to go move forward. We used to do the same thing. We did our tactics manuals out at Nellis. We get it done. I say, everybody happy men? And they say, yeah. Well, yeah, you better throw the towel in. I think it's all screwed up. We just get done. How can you say that? You mean we're all perfect? We know what the hell? That's bullshit. So we should be working on the next manual. I said that way you keep it alive. Spirit, vitality. You're growing, thriving, and growing. French, they kept that goddamn 1791 drill regulation. I've never forgotten that. For 40 years, from 1791 to 1831, they're all out of date. They paid for that. That's why you always want to think ahead. Now, having said that, you got to get into item 1. Too much Clausewitzian emphasis. Clausewitz didn't have it right. Concentration and speed. I'll give you an example. And for the people who weren't here the other day when I talked about it, he said there's no higher principle than acting with the utmost concentration. Then you read very carefully, and he goes back to chapter, book 8, chapter 9, in which he has a long discussion on the idea of concentration, on speed, or rapidity, or time. And he lays out 4 exceptions to the idea of concentration. 4 exceptions. And within the 4 exceptions, one of the underlying reason, you read it very carefully, is the idea of speed. You can't violate a second principle, act with the utmost speed. Well, but he has no exceptions to speed. So if he has no exceptions for speed, he uses a basis for concentration, then the highest principle is not concentration, but speed. So he contradicted himself. And so what do you got in your manual? Concentration, speed. So if you're going to use that, it should be speed and concentration. Just the reverse. Not only that, I don't even like the word concentration because it's the wrong word. But now if you're going to use multiple thrusts like we talked about today, and I can show all the different ways that's done, that's not concentration. That's a focus. So it should be speed and focus. Yeah. Now you're back in the 20th century instead of back in the... Don't let yourself get too dazzled by Clausewitz because he said something. Okay, so we see that. Okay? Now let's go on to the second, this is the last chart in this sample. Now let me talk this one. Note this one up here. This is one of my favorites. Gitgar, the fastest of the most, so Nathan Bedford Forrest. Now what's wrong with that in the context of your new FM-1? FM-1, even though it's got something, it's got, in a sense, it's got that right. Not this. This is not quite the correct way to proceed. All right to the 19th century, not to the 20th century. People that heard my patterns, tell me what's wrong with that. Close, but no cigar. What are you just going to rush somewhere to get there, to get someplace the fastest? What you want to do is you want to lay a situation on somebody. As they're trying to adjust that situation, then you lay another one onto it, so he has to keep adjusting the situation. He falls behind you, pull his pants down. So what he's doing here, he's using time to serve space. I use space in order to serve time. I pull the guys around, just invert the whole process. So I'm moving using space in order to lay situations on a guy. He can't keep up, and the result, he falls back in time. He's not adapting, he starts coming unglued. He can't cope with the situation. Okay, Blumentritt, 1947, note his comment. Incidentally, these are his underlines, not mine. He underscored it. The reason why I bring it out, I find that very interesting. People don't like my OODA loop, but the Germans already, in a sense, had it. They just didn't have the first quick assessment. They took the observation orientation, put it together. Quick decision, quick execution. I mean, rapid assessment, excuse me. Same idea. Note what he said. Each minute ahead of the enemy is an advantage. Not to go somewhere, he just said he wants to take advantage. He saw it. 1947. Now that's when it was written. Now how much before that were they doing it? Interesting question. That's when it was written down. So you can surmise they were thinking that way far before that. Very interesting. Okay, Ball, 1960. 1980. Recognize the importance. Implicit connections are bonds. In other words, you can have an organic whole that can function as an organism. Nobody says based upon trust, not mistrust. The quickest way to destroy an organization is generate mistrust and discord within it. It's no damn good. So when the squeeze comes on, they all fly apart, panic, pointing fingers, and all that. So you can build up these real strong bonds of trust in that, and harmony. Then when the squeeze comes on, there's a union. And it's going to come. Always does, sometime or later. And this is mine. See mine. And note this, and this is a very important idea. Pull the adversary back inside himself. Why do I say that? For people who heard my presentation so far, it's an important idea. Why do you want to pull a guy back inside himself? You cut him off from the very thing he needs in order to cope. That's right, you destroy his orientation. If his orientation is destroyed, you destroy what then? His decision, his ability to observe, to decide, and to act, which means now he can't play. In other words, it's the isolation side of the interaction-isolation game.
You follow that's what we're doing with our system in and then we'll withdraw.
And see, the way if you get inside a guy's loop, what are you doing? You destroy his orientation, so he's disoriented. Now he's unfolding that loop with a corrupt orientation, and then if you keep it going, it gets more and more, it amplifies itself. So what happens, you begin to see these things, first uncertainty, doubt, distrust, confusion, panic, the whole thing, and person literally, you just can't cope. In fact, Colonel Hobbs pointed out, or Barnes pointed out, one of the exercises you ran for some of your students here, where they ran an exercise and they fell behind. All the guys were sitting there just looking at the goddamn table. They were paralyzed. They couldn't do a friggin' thing because the other guys got totally inside their loop. You're laughing. Is that true? Hmm? Did you see that? Yeah, everybody's telling me about it. And incidentally, this is not the first time I've seen that. When I was out at Leavenworth, they ran some exercises, similar kind of thing. Guys, you got the point. They didn't know what the hell was paralyzed. Done. Out of the game. And in real war, of course, the guys come in and sweep them up with criticism. Can't go.
I don't want to distract from you, but some of the conversation I shared with you coming down here, that we may have a system that just self-induces us to continue to look within. And we lose the focus outside.
Some of the things that you were talking about is we focus, we made too much of our plan, and we focus on how to make our plan work as opposed to reorienting us to what.
Well, what I'll bring to you later on when I talk about Nifty Nugget, I'll give you a little hint. We'll get into it later on. I'll just give you a hint since we're onto this thing right now. Nifty Nugget and Proud Spirit. What happened was they got internally focused and they couldn't cope. Or the people familiar with it, Christ, they were working so goddamn hard to make the thing work. They couldn't make it work. They couldn't figure out what was going on the outside. So they were focused inside too. And the whole thing just drained away into goddamn bullshit. Couldn't do it. Well, these are, so we're getting on I'm just laying out some snapshots here, some ideas. Don't get attached to anyone. The most important thing, don't even get attached to that goddamn green book. I call them the green book. Always, you want to widen your horizons. It's just another input, get other inputs. You want to get what I call a wide repertoire for dealing with the world. Because having a wide repertoire, you're going to have the variety, you're going to have the rapidity, and new situations come up, you can make the adjustments. If you have a narrow repertoire, something's going to, you say, now what? You're done. It's like the fighter pilot, he's got his favorite maneuver. If that doesn't take, he's done. Hosed. Same thing. Okay. So those are the key points I'm trying to get to you after looking at these two things. One, I'll use a closed thing. The atmosphere of war is friction. Or you want to call it entropy, okay. We'll use entropy later on. I'm giving Clausewitz a little credit here. And what you have to understand is something, Clausewitz made a mistake. He just called the atmosphere of war like it's out there. Not only that, remember, he was worried about his own internal friction. He didn't look at it, why not try to pump up the adversary's friction? He just said it's sort of out there and it's kind of hard to control. But he was always focused inward, trying to reduce his own friction. He never come up with, how do I pump up the adversary's friction? And that was the difference between he and Sun Tzu. Even though Sun Tzu didn't have the word friction, he's trying to really, literally pump up his adversary's friction so the guy can't cope, can't play the game. So in that sense, Sun Tzu has a better philosophy of war than Clausewitz. Regardless of how long Clausewitz's volume goes. So friction is generated by a number of things, or pumped up. Menace, ambiguity, deception, rapidity, uncertainty, mistrust, confusion, etc. Put it simply more. That tends to push it up. On the other hand, you can diminish it. You can't get rid of it. By implicit understanding, trust, cooperation, simplicity, focus, etc. Those kinds of things. Okay, so in this sense, variety and rapidity, if you look at this, tend to magnify friction, while harmony and initiative tend to diminish it. We're sort of gluing things together. That's what I'm trying to bring out. Okay, that being the case, let's summarize here. In other words, what I'm really saying relative to that is variety and rapidity without harmony and initiative lead to confusion, disorder, and ultimately to chaos. Okay, but turn the argument around. You've got to be careful. So, well, we need harmony and initiative. No, not quite. Harmony and initiative without variety and rapidity lead to uniformity, rigid uniformity, predictability, and ultimately to non-adaptability, which then you go down to two. So you can't have just one or the other. You've got to have what? Both. You've got to have variety and rapidity along with harmony and initiative. If you're going to play the game of cooperation and conflict. Which raises an interesting question. How do we generate harmony and initiative so that we can exploit variety and rapidity? That's the way to think about it. Not your own. Or we must uncover those, what I call, those interactions that foster harmony and initiative, yet do not destroy variety and rapidity. And so that's going to be our goal in this presentation. That's what we're going for. So that's why I call it organic design. Okay? Now this chart, I'll let you just look at it. I got to brief this chart. Now what you don't realize, you look at that, you say, my God, Oh, different kinds of things in there. But they're really connected. I'm going to show you here in a minute as I talk to them. I'm going to show you how they're all related. Very much related to one another. Okay, for example, and they're one-to-one correspondence. I got activities here and I got a correspondent linkages over here. For example, note what I've done. Later, positive, negative. Let's talk about the positive first. Rate of transmission and reception. You can't talk or receive unless you're in common frequencies, right? You say, well, Christ, that's trivial. Yeah, it is. So you have to be in common frequencies. Okay? Now let's talk about conversation writing. You both have to use the same language. In other words, if you speak German and I speak English, we don't really know one of them, we can't even communicate. Okay? Now you have an operational intelligence center. You have to correlate them with multiple sources. You get information, you have to get some kind of correlation. You just can't have the data, otherwise you're going to be totally confused. So there has to be some correlation. Got to pull it together. What fits, what doesn't fit. And that's not necessarily easy either, Peter. Stuff's coming at you. In fact, you use that, when you know other intelligence agencies have to feed that, you try to feed that so you can screw them up so they get the wrong picture of what's going on. Teamwork. Harmony of different efforts. Get even more so. In other words, we're in a team, we're all different. But we all can't go off individually when we're together. So somehow we have to get our efforts so there has some certain harmony so we realize, in a social sense, a larger purpose or a larger goal. So in other words, you have to observe your buddy, and he has to observe you, and you have to constrain your activities to fit in with his, and vice versa. Yet at the same time, you want to maintain a variety of rapidity we talked about. Okay, what about trade-offs? Inversely related characteristics. In other words, if I tend to highlight something, that means I subdued something else. It's automatic. So you made a trade-off today. Right now, you're in this presentation, whether you want to be here or not. So we're highlighting that on opinion. Now, sometimes we do it informally. We sometimes highlight certain kinds of things because of orientation. Other times we do it in a very formal sense, like in design of airplanes. You highlight certain things, subdue others. We all do. That's very normal. Nothing wrong. And then Hans Rudolph, he's of course, he's a human being. Many of you probably heard about him, the scuba pilot during World War II. Flew over 2,000 some combat missions and destroyed over 500 Russian tanks, sunk a battleship, and shot down 29 times. Was flying the end of the war, the last day of the war, part of his leg gone and all shot up. Considered the greatest combat pilot of all time. He really was. And note this comment that I got right. Image of activities related and changes there too. The reason why we had him over in this country 3 different times. He's dead and passed away. And we were interested in his experience, so we brought him over. And one of the things he pointed out, he said sometimes after he got shot down, lost his leg one time, a couple of times, we left the front and leave. When he came back, everything felt strange. He had to be able to get back into it so he could see what was going on. In fact, you have to develop that finger spitting a feel for the front, so you not only know where to go, but also so you can survive. And he says, when you first come back, when you have a problem, you're going to go do things you shouldn't do. You're either going to get hosed down or you're going to make a mistake. And he says, the only way you can do that, you have to keep up on it. There's always those are interactions that are taking place. That's why I call them interactions that take place. You think, what the hell's this damn boy doing? Let me take you through it. So what we're saying, common frequencies here, what are we talking about as we work our way down? First of all, what we find out as we work our way down here, we have to cross-reference from one thing to another. We have to relate from one thing to another. I call it cross-referencing. You have to cross-reference. Not only that, as you go down here, you find out, as it gets more and more subtle, you have what I call many-sided cross-references. And it's not so obvious as you go down here. It's called many-sided, I call it implicit, sort of hidden. Many-sided implicit cross-references. And there's 4 components to it. You tend to project yourself into the situation. In other words, you tend to see it from your viewpoint. On the other hand, you want to be able to see it from the other viewpoint, which I call empathy. And next, you want to find those things that correlate, remember I said there, and reject that doesn't. So what we're really saying here, what this represents, all these interactions here, is nothing more than a many-sided implicit cross-referencing process of projection, empathy, correlation, and rejection. And to show you how powerful it is, let's take the negative. When you have compartmentation, which intelligent people do, people have rigid discipline to do that, disconnected bits and pieces. In other words, people aren't communicating across boundaries. And that's why you hear me talking about always be fluid, be able to go through it, otherwise you have an organization that can't function as an organic whole. And that's why intelligence agencies definitely have compartmentation. By doing that, they tend to protect the overall picture, even though intelligence agencies working them over, they only got bits and pieces and can't put together the overall picture. It's just natural. It's a security device. Okay, non-cooperative centers of gravity, islands of disconnected effort. In other words, people aren't cooperating, you got all this stuff going off in every direction. No interaction. That's why I call it negative. Alienation, disconnect from other humans. A person alienated by barriers. Now you can't function as a whole. And the guerrillas play heavily upon it. What they're trying to do is they're trying to alienate the government from the people. Once they've done that, the government has nothing to run. They take over everything. Talk about it. Non-adaptation. Disconnected from the environment. In other words, now you're disconnected. You're not even tuned into the environment thing. You have to adapt to it, and you're no longer adapt. And fixed recipe. Now I'm talking about the 1791 drill rig. Initially they were connected, but eventually they had this formal thing. They've been doing it for years. The environment's changed. Now it's totally disconnected from the environment. They're going through some kind of formalities not even related to what they should be doing. Okay? So, and here's the insight on the previous chart. We're talking about interactions shown represent a many-sided implicit cross-government process of projection, empathy, correlation, and projection. That's what we're talking about. That's a common idea I'm trying to bring out of the previous chart. Common theme, the insight. Now, let's build upon it. I said, okay, boy, that's put the crap. Okay, let's go into it and see what we can build on. So we have a little suspicion. We say, we think about this. We say, wait a minute. In some sense, it seems it's related to orientation. Hence, it raises an interesting question. What do we mean by orientation? Let's see if we can link these things together, pull some things together here. And if you look at orientation, person's orientation, we look at it as a result here. There's images, views, impressions in your head. And it's shaped by a number of things. Your genetic heritage, your genes, your cultural tradition, your previous experiences, and can be modified, or depending on how adaptive they are, by unfolding circumstances. By unfolding circumstances. But there's another point here. Geneticists says we're hardwired. We can't change it. Of course, we've got guys working on it today who are going to be able to do that. Like the other biology, microbiology. You're hardwired. In other words, there's certain ways we're shaped. Our personality, not just because of our genetic structure. You can't change that. Your cultural traditions. You can change that, but change it over a long period of time. That's not easy to change. Those are the preconceptions we have that are associated with our cultures. We grow up in our family, our friends, and everything, or in any institution like the Marine Corps, wherever you are. You're shaped by that. Or in your head, you make decisions in that. And your previous experience, things you learned at work, say, fine, those things tend to do it. And the only way you change is by unfolding circumstances. What I'm trying to say, maybe we're not quite as adaptable as we think we are. It's to be adaptable. And that's why when you set up a plan of operations, when you're going to want to use a deception plan, what you try to do is you try to understand your adversary. Those preconceptions he has, or you feed those preconceptions. In other words, you feed his biases. And if you can feed his biases, you get enormous deception. That's why you do it. But we're not quite as adaptable as we think we are when you start gluing these things together and see it in a more whole sense. Okay? Now, it raises another question. You know, how are these images, views, or impressions created? Now we're going to link some things up. Now, instead of looking at it as a result, we'll look at orientation, what I call as an ongoing process, or an interactive process. So really, orientation is an interactive process of many-sided implicit structure that is shaped by the genetic heritage, cultural tradition, experience, and fully circumstances. That's what your orientation really is. You can look at it as a result, but it's really an ongoing process. It's being tweaked and tuned. For some people, when they look at the outside world, then it becomes a result. They're hard thinking in every way. Can't change. We call that kind of a person what? Rigid. It's a rigid person. Use that word. Or dinosaurs, we call them. In other words, words that they don't like to hear. Okay? Now, that being the case, so we want to make some fun. Here's the illumination I want to bring out. This is a very important chart. So orientation is the sphere or the driver, the main focus. And the reason why it shapes the way we interact with the world. It shapes the way we observe, the way we decide, the way we act. In other words, you have a certain preconception, and you don't look at the world any old way. You look at it a certain way. In other words, your orientation, that culture, your genes, your culture, and previous experiences, it's a lens through which you look at the world. And each of us have a different lens. And that lens captures some things, tends to highlight some things and subdue others. And for different people, have different highlights and different things that are subdued. So it really shapes the way what you see from that world. Let me give you an example. Some of you people have gone through and you read a book sometime. You're very fascinated by it. You say, God damn, she's not a book. I really like that. And 4 or 5 years later, you go back and read it, and you get a totally different interpretation, saying, well, what's happened? In the meantime, your orientation's changed. Now you're highlighting and subduing different kinds of things. Same book. That's why I hate approved solutions. You know, the instructor will give and say, okay, tell me what's in the book. He's got this cute little thing in his orientation seems right, and everybody else got a different one. So they're wrong and he's right by the mere fact he's the instructor. It's a totally terrible way to do it. The point is, people are going to highlight and subdue differently according to whether they have one kind of different kind of orientation. The important thing is, can they explain it and does it make sense? And a good example of it, where you can see people have different orientations. You heard of this old parlor game, you put 20 guys in a row. You give a guy on the left a message, you say, pass that same message on to everybody else. And they're not even trying to distort. By the time it comes back, you say, Christ, I didn't say that, it's not even close. But at every level, people with different orientation tend to highlight and subdue different things. So after that accumulates to about 20 people, different messages. That should tell you something about change of command in that too. Same thing. Nothing malicious. Of course, there's some malicious people and you make it even worse. That's why you want to have a few intervening layers between what you're trying to do when you give a order to somebody and somebody else, or you want to have it go down parallel paths so you can be sure to get structured in the way you intended. Okay, so that's the key point then. So that's what I'm trying to say. So the orientation then is you as an individual. It's a repository of your genes, your culture, and your experience. That's you as an individual. It's a repository. So orientation. So what I'm really saying, the second O in the OODA loop is the most important part. Observe the second O, because it just shapes the way you observe, the way you decide, the way you act. On the other hand, you can modify. By the mere fact you go through that OODA loop, you get some new experiences, which you can change your orientation. Or some people go through it and they never change it.
So really, your orientation shapes what you observe.
That's right. But if you go through the loop, you see some other things that you hadn't seen before. You pick up a few things and you can get a new reorientation. So now, looking at that, let me give you an example. So now, let's say we throw some events at a guy, and he's out of date in his orientation. Then the next loop, he's disoriented. He gets disoriented further and further. We just grind the guy down, he becomes totally unglued. It's like a chain reaction. So if we can go at a faster tempo, his orientation, the first one, he's going to be disoriented. Then he goes through again, he's going to be further behind, further behind, further behind. Pretty soon, Christ's action, his observations, decisions, action are totally out of touch with what's going on. It's like a chain reaction, like a nuclear chain reaction. So the implications are very simple. What we want to do is we need to create mental images or views or impressions, hence patterns that match with the activity world. On the other hand, we want to deny or emphasize the same opportunity. And a good example, during World War II, was the so-called, the British, when they suborned all the German agents, they used what they called the double cross system, and they were feeding back all this phony information to the Germans, and then coupled with that, they were able to get them fixing the German mind that we were going to come in the Pas-de-Calais area rather than the Normandy area, so they put all their armies at the Pas-de-Calais, and they held on to that image for over 30 days after we landed at Normandy. Incorrect impression of what was going on. That was an outstanding strategic deception. Go ahead.
And that last bullet there, the implications are. What you're talking about then is what you're trying
this
to.
bullet here?
The one that's up from that.
This one?
Yeah. Are you saying that what you're trying to, in terms of command and control, and what you're trying to design is a way of looking at things that corresponds as closely as possible to.
But how can you guard against
reality?
that? How can you guard against that? In other words, you want to get reality. How are you going to get reality? I already told you. Make a many-sided implicit cross-referencing. If you don't look at things from many different viewpoints, you don't look at the pyramid from one side, you're going to have one view of it, you're not going to really know what a pyramid looks like. You have to look at things from several points of view. You see what I'm saying? In other words, you want to have a wide variety of sources you're gathering information to find out those things that hold together and those things don't hold together. Many-sided implicit, you got to always look for that. But when you say, oh, that guy's bullshit, you've just rejected information. You've been in meetings, horseshit, that's no good. Guy. Right, then you give the guy time to explain it. Now, part of it may be baloney, but a good part of it may be good, and he would listen to it if he would have got some good nuggets out of that and used it. It's all right to make judgments, but you don't make them before the fact. After you listen to everything carefully and get some discussion, then you're obviously going to have to come with judgments, what fits, what doesn't fit, but not too early. Otherwise, you reject useful information. But see, now in the Pentagon, the meetings are held not to get information, but see who's going to be top dog in the meeting. So they hurry off to some judgments, and they all look like assholes before it's over then. and make dumb things. So is the meeting the purpose of trying to educate and learn something, or is the meeting to find out who's the smartest guy? By coming up with clever clips or quips or statements, or having a hidden agenda what they want to let the other people see. But they wouldn't do that, would they? In bureaucracy, you're goddamn wrong they do.
So if I could just capture something, where we're trying to go is, when we write this manual or this abstract, it gives a view of the whole pyramid. In your efforts, what you've done is drawn upon a specialist, if you will, and he, for whatever reason, we've institutionalized, he's only looking at one side in varying degrees. He may look at the second side, everything like that.
That's why you want to look at numbers. That's why, in fact, you're on a very key point here. That's why there's a difference between what I call top-down and bottom-up command and control. And that's where the Packard mission fails. They only look at top-down. They're always talking about smoothing lines of communication, etc. On bottom-up, you have one chain of command going down, but then you want multiple channels coming up, so a guy can look at the different channels and cross-reference. Therefore, get a good picture of what's going on.
Somewhere where the commandant's going with the term.
So it's one down, many up. And see, what do I mean by many up? Will each guy have his own little monopoly? No. Each guy's own little monopoly, then he's only going to pass up what he knows the boss wants to hear. You want to have competing channels of information going up. Or different. And that way, so some people be processing the same information, but they'll have different viewpoints, and you begin to see what's going on, see? Very important. So many independent channels, not many different monopolies passing information up.
Back to the pyramid, the commandant trying to get us away from the specialist into the generalist, and the fog, what is he actually talking? That's what we're talking about. Once again, to be able to see the whole pyramid. Understand.
See, the argument I gave, what he's appealing to is, I don't think you were here. It was the first day. I said, look, too often, let's pretend there's people in this group. Let me go over it one more time. Let's say, you people all your life, it's a simplistic argument, I'm trying to drive home a point. For one reason or another, you only got to see pyramids from the side. Well, hell, you go through life thinking pyramids are triangles. And then let's say there's another group, for some crazy reason, only got to see pyramids from the top. They think it's a square with intersecting diagonals. Then let's say the two groups interacted. Each group would think the other one didn't know what the hell a pyramid was, and they're both talking only about a piece of it. Neither one has it all. And that's what happens. You see a lot of the arguments in the Pentagon. Each guy's talking around with it. One guy's a piece, another guy's a piece. They're talking about the same thing, but each guy thinks the other guy's wrong. They only got a small piece of it, not knowing that it fits into a larger picture. And that's why you have to make those many-sided implicit cross-references. How many people, any physicists here, people study physics or science? You ever heard of the concept of symmetry? They can talk about a lot in modern physics. It's been able to find those things that remain the same when you look at it from many different points of view. In other words, those invariants, those constants. And that's what intelligent people try to do. They try to sift the information and they say, geez, this thing keeps creeping up here and there. There must be something in there. Of course, you've got to be careful. The other guy knows you're doing that. He's going to probably set things up that way, too. Insidious game. You've got to reach down and be able to see those subtly. Okay, you got it? You see what I'm talking about here, then? Okay? So, the idea is quite simple. Your inability to make those many-sided implicit cross-references. That's how you guard against it. You've got to make those cross-references. So how do we set up the advantage of this process? So the next chart's an important chart. I'll let you read it and I'll comment on it. Now note that first statement there. You want to take a group. They're all the same because they have different orientations, but you expose them to a variety of situations so the person then has an opportunity not only to see how the other people respond, you see what I'm saying? So they can build up an organic wholeness out of that group. And when you do that, what it permits them to do then, frankly, I probably should underline variety here too. So they not only observe and orient themselves simultaneously, the other end of the variety changes. If you had different people doing it, then you'd never have a common focus so they could operate against it. Okay? And that's why it's bad when you transfer people around as individuals. It's better to take groups. That's why the Germans, remember, how many people read Van Crevel's book, Fighting Power? Remember, that was the key idea. The Germans, what they do, they instead of plugging in individuals, they'd plug in units. Those guys are used to working with one another. But see, personnel doesn't look like that because it gives them less flexibility. So we run the Marine Corps, the Army, or the Air Force for the benefit of personnel. We don't let personnel operate for the benefit of their service.
When we go back,
It's tough. It's tough on the assignments. Go ahead.
When we go back and talk about that, like in 6-1A about maintaining all functions we discussed that the other day. Isn't that the purpose of having? We talk about having different types of command posts, command and control. One command post is a main command post where you have this information that comes up, through channels, etc. But then we have other command posts, for example, a forward CP, which allows the CO or whatever to go out and experience and see the pyramid from a different side. I mean, isn't that why we have these? When you describe command and control systems.
Well, that's why you don't want to have a guy. Well, that's a result of World War I. The guy was back there at the chateau, trying to figure out what's going on, and that's why you want to get the guy at the front so he can get a sense he's making these. Because the picture up front is not going to be the same as the one from the rear.
Not
And so
necessarily.
his decision to be related to the front, he should have some understanding of what's going on out there so he can make the right decisions. That's what you're saying.
Well, a lot of times you say, well, like at our MAGTAP, the commander shouldn't go forward because he's going to get in the GCE commander's business. But is that really the purpose, or is it more to see the pyramid from another side?
Well, the purpose of going up front and talking to your commanders is to get different viewpoints. You're talking about,
Isn't that
the
part of
local
the
response.
committee-sided implicit?
Yeah. So if you deprive that of the guy, then he's going to have a narrower spectrum through which he's going to look at the world. That's exactly right. And that's why the Germans, that's why Guderian and the guys in the Panda says that the officers would command from the front. And they had more general casualties than the other army in history because of that. The general officers, they lost a lot of general officers because that's the way they were commanded. And the Israelis are the same way, I might add.
Key then to developing thinking officers or thinking Marines is to focus not on the decision or the action, but to focus on orientation.
Or the orientation is related, keep pressing, the orientation is related outward. In other words, it's an outward focus, not an inward focus. So you can have the correct orientation. Because your orientation shapes everything. If you have a crummy orientation, your observation will be crummy, your decision will be crummy, and so is your action. What you're trying to do is build up a relevant orientation. Well, if you're always looking